Welcome to the DSPN.
John Walker wins the 1,500 metres gold medal at the Olympic Games.
The All Blacks have won by 29 points to 9.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome again to the podcast, people. DSPN, Martin, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. If you have hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, thank you so much. We're up to 4,000 subscribers, trying to get to 5,000 as soon as we can. So you can help us out by clicking subscribe. Or if you're following us on social media, Martin Devlin _DSPN, like, share, follow, leave a comment, all of that. We're very grateful to you for doing so. Special guests on the show today, Tony Johnson from Sky Sport, talking all things rugby as we build up to the start of the Super Comp this Friday. Much looking forward to it. Miles Davis doing his big blah blah as he does every Wednesday. Tide 5, where we discuss most of the day's major sports stories, including Warren Gatland, gone from Wales, Sam Kerr, not guilty of racial harassment of a London bobby. The Warriors have named co-captains for the season for the first time since 2001. The Ineos/NZR sponsorship spat. That looks ugly. Champions League playoffs today. Luka Doncic debuting for LA. We begin the day the same old way, which is a sermon from the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, or an innovative way to approach the captaincy question. Only time is going to tell how the new 4 captains for one team will work for the Hurricanes this Super Rugby season. Coach Clark Laidlaw doing something no other franchise, including his own, has ever done. And in fact, I can't find another occasion anywhere in the world, in the whole time I've been watching rugby, where 4 different players have been named to lead the same side. It's a collaborative approach, he says, called ngā kaitiaki, where 4 guys will work together. Sheer genius or way overthinking it? Only time is going to tell. But what it does say to me very loud and very clear is that the whole position of captain might now be something more ceremonial than anything actually overly influential. What does the captain actually do anyway? Who knows? Rev the team up pre-match? Well, that would be a lot less effective with 4 blokes all doing it. Nothing but a whole lot of mixed messages going on, you'd think. Talk to the referee during the game and establish that relationship. And these days, with all the rules and their differing interpretations, that's a role much more crucial than most would think. But again, more than one voice, would that be more hindrance than help? Having more than one skipper would certainly help spread the load with the post-match media commitments. But other than that, all I can think of is that many more voices means much more confusion. Did the All Blacks ever need more than one Richie McCaw leading the side when we were the world's most dominant team for the best part of 10 years? No, not at all. And maybe I'm generalising, but I think with us men that, yeah, the leader picks themselves and we just want one person to talk to us, not 4. It sounds 3 too many for me, but this is the modern world. I'm an old school style git, and of course I don't get it, and I probably never will. Several other New Zealand teams, including the Highlanders and the Chiefs, and as I said, the Warriors have already named co-captains, so what the hell would I know anyway? All I do know is that the old days of one team, one man, one voice are clearly now about as much a part of this modern game as handing out the oranges at halftime.
DSPN.
Rugby as you know it, Super Rugby is back this weekend. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport is going to be calling these games right across the competition. TJ, thanks for joining us again. We're going to go through all the teams. We've got a bit of rugby news to talk about. And you're kicking off with the Blues versus the Chiefs, a replay or repeat of last year's final. What a cracking game that was Saturday night.
Great game to start the
brilliant,
season. And I was actually looking at tickets. Tickets are selling well for it, so there's obviously a bit of a buzz about it. The Blues start as defending champions. It's the first time in a full sort of Super Rugby competition. They've done that since, 2004, something like that.
That's right, yeah.
So all set up. It's a great rivalry, this one. And the weather's looking good. So, I'm looking forward to the start of Super Rugby this year because there's been a few changes, bit of movement here and there, a few new, I think, interesting law variations that I think should have a positive effect, and of course a fantasy.
Yeah, and look, it's not for me. I have enough turmoil in my life with my real teams, let alone a fantasy team. But I know that a lot of people have been jumping on this, which is excellent. I mean, good on New Zealand Rugby again for realising that this is a part of it, and especially the engagement for the young folk. This is what they like doing. And you yourself have a fantasy team?
Yeah, look, it's more the new Super Rugby entity. We've got a new, independent Super Rugby board now, And I think it's a positive move because there needs to be some independence in the way it's governed. And this is one of the things they've come up with. They're going to have a player of the year as well. But fantasy rugby, and it is up and running. There were some worries whether it was going to be. So you've got a budget of X $1 million, and you've got to pick a team within that budget. I've had a crack at it. The good thing is we're being told now, and we had this in the NPC last year and it was great, teams should be out Wednesday afternoon. They're telling the teams, you've got to have your teams out Wednesday. Don't change your team on Monday. Wait until Wednesday till the teams come out, then make your adjustments. I'm looking for players that have got high productivity. For example, my hooker, Tavita Ikanaveri from the Fijian Drua, because he's dynamite, gets the ball in his hands a lot. So that's an example of the way I'm thinking. Okay. But different people have different ideas. They just want to pick a team full of their favourites. But it'll be fun. Yep. And if it's too complicated for you, Martin, well, you share the ride with me.
I will be on your back, and I'll be hoping that every week I'll be asking you about your team and how we are doing in the fantasy league. Okay. Before we get into Super Rugby as well, and we're going to be talking about this throughout the podcast today. It's a real worry, this Ineos spat that's going on with the NZR. I don't think NZR have done anything wrong here. Unfortunately, they've ended up on the wrong side of this. And when you've got these billionaires who are used to getting their way, Tony, in absolutely everything that they do, I think this is probably a power play from Ratcliffe where hopefully they settle out of court and don't have to go through a long legal process. Yeah,
there was always a bit of a risk with this one. When you're presented with that sort of money, for the amount of space that they were giving up on the strip, it's very hard to say no. And you're talking millions on millions. And the risk to me was more initially about the public perception, because it is a petrochemical company at a time where the world's kind of turning on that sort of thing. Yep. And if you believe the reports that are coming out of the UK, that may have been a factor in it. The EU, some of the crackdowns they're having in terms of companies like this, they had to close down, for example, a plant in Scotland, affected the livelihoods of about 700 people not so long ago. And he's saying that there is less money. I mean, this is a guy who, he's in America's Cup, he's in cycling, Manchester United. Obviously that's a dodgy investment.
Obviously he's not repairing the roof at Old Trafford, is he?
But the thing is, this is where it doesn't quite add up, because he bought another big chunk of Manchester United last year. Now he's saying he hasn't got so much money to fulfil his obligation with New Zealand Rugby. But you're right. I think the last thing New Zealand Rugby can afford to do is get into a legal stoush with this guy. Perhaps this is why the plays come. But if it goes to court, it'll drag out forever. It'll be ugly, it'll get messy, and in the end, it'll be costly. And so they've got to try and find a way. It might be less exposure for less money, whatever it is. But I think that is the risk that you take when you get involved in sponsorships like that.
Super Rugby then. So when we're talking right now, we don't know the teams. They are coming out this afternoon. The podcast normally lands around about 4:30 for you. You've got a bit of an inside word, but what you want to do is Tone's going to go through all the teams for us in terms of players that you're looking out for, changes that have been made, prospects for the season. Let's start at the very top then with the New Zealand sides. We're going to do the 5 sides, obviously, and MP, look at MP as well, but it's got to be the Blues to start with, because this is a team that now has to do something they haven't done since 96, 97, which is win a title. And look, the Chiefs did it, the Crusaders did it year upon year, but win it and then win it again.
I think they've got the credentials to do it. They've got the blueprint to do it, and they get Bowden Barrett back this year. Obviously, Bowden was away for a fair chunk last year. They have lost Akira Ioane. Takes some physical force out of the team.
Experience as well, a lot of experience.
Yeah,
there.
Bryce Heem is another one. Soani Vakena, who's gone down south, so that they lose a little bit there. But generally, to me, this is a pretty solid and settled squad, and I think the formula won't change.
You're talking about the way that Vern has got them playing, which was unlike what we saw of the Blues for years, wasn't it? Just very direct.
Beautifully brutal.
Yeah, and a really simple game plan.
Yeah. And I think his greatest achievement was getting the team to buy into it, because that's not the natural inclination of a lot of those players. But they did, and there was something about Stern Vern, the way he goes about his business, that really resonated with that group. The player to watch this year for me, well, obviously, we're going to be looking at McKenzie, we're going to be looking at Barrett, because now that finally the door has closed, well, for the meantime, on this Richie Mo'unga thing, that it's going to be down to those two.
To start the year for
what position they're playing in, how well they play. I'm hoping he's going to play a fair bit at 10 for the Blues, Beauden Barrett. But the player for me to watch is Hoskins Satutu. He was the best player in Super Rugby last year, certainly according to the judging panel for the Rugby Awards, of which I was one. He had so many ways of influencing a game, and then just the rise of Wallace Satiti meant that he didn't get those opportunities in the black jersey we thought he was going to get. This is going to be the year for him. Satiti's going to be out for quite a while. Here's your opportunity.
Right. Yep.
And I just, it's a matter of how he takes that, how he grabs it. If he does, then I think he could be a key role in a Blues team that would be hard to beat.
Do you pick them right now before the season starts?
They'd be my favourites to win it.
Okay.
By no means a dead set favourite. I don't think that's competition. It's impossible to be that confident, but I think they've earned the right to start as favourites.
We're just going through the New Zealand teams here, and I'm going to put the Chiefs in at 2 before the season starts, playing the Blues on Saturday night. Given the fact that the year before, after 2023, I thought 2024 was their year.
Yep.
They kind of played a bit like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, though, in the round robin. They weren't that convincing. Then, of course, they got really convincing and had that fantastic semi-final win. So they regroup again. So their playing roster, stack full of All Blacks, stack full of experience. Have they got what it takes now to, again, lift themselves to that level that the Blues got to?
Well, again, I think this is a team that's got a really good coach, Clayton McMillan. He's been sort of steadily rising up through the coaching ranks. I like what he's done with his team. To me, along with the Blues, they look the most settled of all the New Zealand teams because what's gone in, what's gone out, nothing. Look, Tyrone Thompson is a loss. To me, this guy had something about him that I thought, with a few rough edges knocked off, could have been an All Black hooker. And so that's a loss. I'm sorry to see him go. Josh Ioane has gone as well. That takes a bit of experience and versatility out of the back line. But look, they get Brodie McAllister from the Crusaders. I think that's a very good addition. Jerome Brown comes back from Australia. He's a Waikato man, made a great impact in Australia. I think that's a really good addition to an already very strong loose trio, particularly with Satiti going to be out. But the players to watch, and I've got 2 of them. Number 1, Samasoni Taukei'aho.
I was just about to mention him. And he's actually already said, he's actually warned the rest of the teams in the comp. He says, I'm busting to get back out there, right?
Yeah, I love watching this guy play.
Watch.
I remember there was a game in Fiji a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I think it was, against the Crusaders, or was it the one against the Highlanders? I can't quite remember. But that was the game where you thought, wow, this guy has got the ability to change the momentum of a game. Mm-hmm. So, how well has he recovered from that injury? How long do they play him in games just early on? Are they easing him back? And, of course, the other one, as I mentioned before, Damian McKenzie. I think this is the year where we all know how brilliant he is.
Yep.
Phenomenal talent, but what we're looking for is that element of sustained control throughout a game.
Good word.
And that's perhaps the thing that was missing. For example, with the All Blacks last year, it wasn't necessarily down to him. Maybe he was a bit part of these little flat patches that they went through. And so to me, this is a big year. This is a great opportunity for him.
I want to see pragmatism from him. Because he's got all the skills, but I want to see him winning games, consistently winning games.
Oh, he'll
for his
do
team.
that. He'll do that. In fact, I've got him in my fantasy team at 10.
Okay.
And
there's a tip.
In fact, I've even made him a captain because I think he'll score points and stuff like that.
Can I also add Luke Jacobson? I think that this guy is he's been there or thereabouts for the All Blacks for years, Tony. And again, that loose forward trio, there is opportunities there for him. I'm not sure what's his best position, but again, I think that this is the year for him. If he can't convince this year, I don't know whether or not he's going to be around as an All Black next year.
First of all, I don't think it matters what position he plays in because he's good, whether it's 6, 7 or 8. And he's so direct. He's really strong. He's a terrific leader of the team. He's definitely another one to watch. He'll be part of it. He provides great value for whichever team he plays for, and that's at the highest level included.
All right, Hurricanes fans, start throwing whatever it is at me. I'm picking the Crusaders at 3 here. I just can't see this team having back-to-back terrible years, and with the Hurricanes, with the injuries that they've got to start the season, and some of them have just been so unfortunate. To lose a player at training with a busted ankle is just hideous. And when they name 4 co-captains because of injuries, so I'm going to park Hurricanes at my 4th place New Zealand team at the moment and put the Crusaders at 3 because I expect them to be the Crusaders.
Well, they crashed last year. I guess the question is, how much did they burn? The interesting thing to me about the Crusaders is the amount of movement, uncharacteristic. And what has happened is that there's actually a lot of veteran experience has gone from the team. I think that, the time has come. And look, it wasn't that they've been dropped. It's just that, they've either retired, they've moved on. So there's no Crotty. There's, for once, there's no Franks anywhere near a Crusaders team.
No Whitelock.
No Whitelock, obviously. Willie Hines, another one who's gone. Joe Moody. So these are players who've been a big part of this dynasty that they had. They've also lost Zach Gallagher to the Hurricanes. Fergus Burke, of course, has gone off to Scotland. So, and in comes James O'Connor.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't exactly effusive about this move when it happened. I kind of get it in a way, though. They've tried out various players in that number 10 jersey, but they need some experience there. This is a huge opportunity for him to show that he
wants to get into the team to play the Lions, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he can do it via he'll have a good pack in front of him. It doesn't matter if some of those names are missing. They're still going to have a very good pack. They always do. It's just something you just write down in ink right from the word go. The Crusaders will be strong up front, and he gets, the ride behind them, and it's on and off the field where everyone's going to be watching.
Because he's got to fit into that whole Crusaders ethos thing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he's had his moments off the field and everything else.
Checkered career, there's no question.
Is he going to be a team player? Has he matured enough to fit into what the Crusaders want from him?
The word was in the pre-season games that he played, when he came on, he immediately bought that control, authority, experience, bit of calm. He's always been had a sort of a laid-back sort of air about him. But as I say, if he treats this as a great opportunity and a point to prove, then that could be a big factor in a comeback year for the Crusaders. I haven't got them to win, but as long as they've got that big bloke wearing that jersey in the second row, Scott Barrett, who's just year in year out amongst our best 2 or 3 players. Then they've got to be a chance. I think he's just one of the best players in the world, Scott Barrett.
And Rob Penny, I like Rob, but when it comes down to this job, it's about winning. And last year, he knows he's on thin ice if they start off like that again. So that it's a fascination watching this team, isn't it? Because normally over the last so many seasons, we'd start Super Rugby and go, oh God, it's them again. Right?
Well, I think that's the beauty of it, and that's the thing that makes it so. It's fascinating because there is a bit of uncertainty for once that we have not seen really for a long, long time. Even in that barren time for them when they were always there but they didn't win the titles after Robbie Deans left, but you just knew they were going to be a factor. Last year they really weren't that much of a factor. And so, which way does it go? That's a space.
It's a great storyline, isn't it?
Really going
Hurricanes at 4. No disrespect to Jamie's Highlanders, who I want to talk about as well, because we had him on the program, and they got a lot of young talent there. But let's talk about that Hurricane side, where if they were selecting their A team, I would put the Hurricanes probably up neck and neck with the Chiefs and think, they were very disappointed, Canes, for missing out last year. But with those injuries that they're carrying right away.
Well, the other thing too is that they've lost some elite talent. I mean, Artie has gone to Moana Pacifica. I think that's a great move for the competition. It's a great move for Moana, but it just takes someone so important, in every way imaginable.
Yeah.
His performance, his leadership, his mana, the status that he has in the game. So you lose him. Geordie is not there, obviously, because he's off playing in Ireland at the moment. But they've lost another couple of players too. Aidan Morgan going, I think that's a blow. Justin Sangster, really underrated player. I know how much he contributed to a great year for Bay of Plenty last year, so to lose him, that's a bit of a blow. They do get Zach Gallagher from the catalogue of locks at the Crusaders, and that's good. Will Tucker's another one, a good hard-working player. So they get something back. And of course, sadly, they've had some injuries, and Brett Cameron out for the season. That's a real blow because he's a very, very capable player. But look, there's a lot to look at as well. The guy that I'm really watching is Peter Luckeye, because I think the ceiling for this guy is incredible. We don't know yet just how good
and
this guy could
that's
get.
the opportunity that Ardie gives him, isn't it, by leaving? So
And Duplessis Kirefi, who is, I think he's a terrific player with his work rate and what have you. So, it's
also Asafo.
Yep.
Who with Samasoni, and then you've got Cody Taylor. We got no problems at 2 at the moment, have we?
Well, that's and the dynamic ball carrying play, and he in the absence of Ardie, it's going to be up to some of those guys, Xavier Numi, and that they'll take a leadership role in that forward pack, which I think is great. And another player, just I really like the look of, been very good at NPC level, and I think has got the potential. I think as a 10, although we've seen a lot of him at 15. That's Harry Godfrey.
Okay.
You just love a guy who's not the biggest guy in the world, but absolutely fearless. And so maybe, I'm not sure of the latest status on the injury front, but, maybe an even greater opportunity presents for him.
Highlanders then, and it's a squad with only one All Black. But talking to Jamie Joseph, I said, well, how do you prepare this team? And he said that all we can do is physically prepare this team as well as we can to play, so that when they go out there, they know that physically they can compete.
Yeah.
And then he said, but the rest of it, you can't substitute big game experience. You can't buy big game experience. And he says that's what they're going to have to learn as they go along. He's making no excuses, though, about it. And I think that the Highlanders have a place as everyone in New Zealand's second favourite team, probably. I mean, we all want to see them do well.
Yep.
But in terms of their win-loss, whether they're going to make that top 6, I just on paper, I can't see that squad doing it. I would love to be surprised by it.
Well, the thing is with the Highlanders, that everyone expects them to come out and play with great spirit and be competitive and, knock over a few teams. But very rarely, in recent years, have people predicted them to gate crash, the business end of the party of the season. So first and foremost, having Jamie as coach, that's points on the board as far as I'm concerned.
You go back history at Marlborough with his old man
Dad,
playing. That's right.
Jim Joseph, So look, I'm not making any bones about it. He's a bit of a favourite of mine, Jamie Joseph.
Yeah, well, with all of us. We all know he's a hard taskmaster, but he's also a decent guy, a really honest guy. Yeah. And I actually think he's got massive respect from his players.
Oh, yeah. And look, they've picked up some interesting young talent as well. Apparently, Caleb Tangitau, former New Zealand Sevens player, he's made the switch. He's gone down. He's been very, very sharp in the pre-season games. And I know you can't put that much on pre-season games, but when someone sort of stands out like that enough to get noticed, you think, okay, that's a good sign. Yep. Suani Vikena has come down from the Blues. That gives them another just absolutely phenomenal ball-carrying hooker. And also, they've got a bit of speed on the wing. I wonder whether we are coming back a little bit around the world to the days of the small winger. Oh, we're seeing it in the Six Nations.
Pin your ears back, dude.
Yeah, and in that regard, Michael Manson from Southland, absolute flyer, whether he gets a chance. What's going to be interesting to me is the talk that Timothy Tavatanawai might play in the midfield.
Okay.
Because it makes a lot of sense, really, because he
plays in NPC,
but he plays like an extra loose forward,
beast
over the ball. Yeah. I think he got more turnovers than anyone else.
He did, well, he won them the Shield, didn't he?
Oh,
that was that turnover.
Yeah. Well, that's so typical of him.
Yeah.
And the other one to watch in this team is Fabian Holland, and I think we've talked about him in the past, Martin. The big man who's come over from the Netherlands. He's sat his tight because he had to qualify for New Zealand. We're not as badly off at lock as we thought we were going to be post Whitelock and Retallick. And he's a guy. He's a big, strong brute of a bloke. He's learnt the game really well. I'll be interesting to see how he goes. They have lost Billy Harmon, and it's sad to see. Billy deserves to go and make as much money as he can.
Absolutely,
because he has just been such a fantastic servant of the game, such a great leader, and a guy who just always played with, total commitment, but absolute dignity as well off the field. I thought he, outstanding. He goes. And the other one amongst the players that have departed, Pari Parkinson, a guy that I always sort of thought, wow, the potential was always there. And it, for one reason or another, a lot of injuries, etc., it just never quite materialised. So they've certainly lost a bit. Mm-hmm. They usually do. Not as many as they lost before the last season. But, I know this almost sounds like a cliche, but anyone who takes them lightly, they do so at their peril.
Let's finish with MP then. Last year, 3 wins, and they've kind of increased that every year, I think, by 1. Again, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. It'd probably be a miracle if they did. But Adi Savera is going to make them worth watching every single weekend, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's going to lift those players around him, because that's what happens when you get a world-class player like that playing for you. You're going to look at him and follow him. So I'm really fascinated again by them this year.
Yeah, look, what I'm going to say is I think they need to take another step because it's time to make a mark. Yes, it's been a difficult road for them so far, that the results have been sparing, and I think this is the year that they have to make a bit more of an impact in terms of results.
They've got to knock off one of the big boys, don't they? Yeah, that would be brilliant if they did.
And also, I think in terms of the crowd, there hasn't quite been the engagement of the level that we thought there would be. Look, everyone wanted this team in the competition, and everyone wants them to stay there. Mm-hmm. There's been a certain amount of goodwill there towards this team. I think this is a year where I think they do need to make more of an imprint, just in terms of the results. But they've made a couple of moves that really give you hope that is going to happen. Obviously, Adi, one of the best players in the game.
Yeah, in the world, yeah.
One of the most influential players who will pick everything up. And also Garden Bishop. With Christian Leali'ifano finally calling it a day after a fantastic career, and what a brave, wonderful man he has been in the game, Christian. But Garden Bishop, very good to step into that role. And they've picked up big Pone Fa'amasili from the Melbourne Rebels as well, which gives a real bit of power and size to their forward pack. So I think I'm expecting more progression from them this year, more of an impact from Moana Pacifica. And, they're playing at North Harbour Stadium this year. There might be a bit of a risk, in that, but urge people to go along and watch them, because I think that, Adi himself's got to be worth bums on seats.
Finally, just for yourself, mate, before you go, here we go again. I don't know what season this is for you. It must be 25. It must be close to 30 maybe. When you left TRN when we were working together, it was about 99 or 2000.
99 I went to Sky. Yeah. So this 25, 20, is that 27? 99, 0, and then 25. Yeah, 27 years. But also, I remember 96 as well. I was calling on the radio then, and how we ventured into Super Rugby, not knowing quite what it was going to be. We were excited about it. We weren't quite sure what it was, and we ended up with the crowds queuing down the street for tickets to the final between the Blues and the Sharks. So next year, the 30th year of Super Rugby, and I know a lot of the franchises or clubs, as they like to call themselves, now are doing things around that. But it's a huge year for the competition because there are new deals to be done. But look, I thought Super Rugby was really good last year, and I have no doubt. And people will say, "Oh, you're just waving the flag for." I'm not.
It was a great comp. If you didn't think so, you missed out last year. If it was an excellent comp last year. I can't wait for Friday night, mate. Valentine's night, going out at 5:30 for dinner. Why is that? She said. Well, we've got another love on the TV at 7:05.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, as I said to you last week, mate, every day is Valentine's Day in our house.
The Tide 5.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly 90 seconds on each. And when the bell dings and reminds us, Lachlan, on to the next topic we go. Now, we're talking to Miles next, and so we're not going to kind of cross topics here. We'll deal with some with him and some without. Let's talk about 4 Hurricanes captains. Is it getting silly? Is 4 too many? 2 Warriors co-captains for the first time since 2001. Warren Gatlin gone by mutual consent. That's important, those 2 words, mutual consent. Rubiales says that he asked for a kiss from Jenny Hermoso, and she said yes. And the Ineos sponsorship deal has gone south with New Zealand Rugby. So, kicking it off, 4 captains for the Canes. Now, this has been explained that some of these 4 are injured and won't be playing, and so there'll only be 2 named on game day who are co-captains. It's easy to kind of smirk and smile at this and go, what the hell is going on? But I don't know, Lachlan. A bunch of men, when it comes to the dressing room beforehand, and I'm thinking, And I remember Ali Williams saying to me before he was telling me about the 2011 Rugby World Cup final. I said, who spoke? He said, Richie McCaw. I said, who else spoke? He said, no one. He said, he was the only guy that spoke, the only guy that said anything. And he said, you don't need anyone else to talk, just one guy to talk, and everyone else listens, and here's the guy. And I go back to that. And I always think with men, it's the same kind of thing, the army kind of thing, or in the fire service or whatever. You just have one guy who's leading and one guy whose voice you listen to. I'm kind of worried about the fact that if you've got co-captains on the field, and is it going to be a debate about whether to do this, to do that, what move to pull, to go to the penalty spot, who approaches the referee? Have you got two guys approach? Because that's not going to work for a start, is it? The ref's going to go, no, I just want to listen to you. I don't want to listen to both of you.
Well, being the devil's advocate, according to this article, under the new structure, one of Asafo Amoa, Duplessis Kirifi, Billy Proctor or Brad Shields will lead the side in each match. So they're not going to have four captains, they're going to have one, and it changes every game, which is really odd. I don't know. Your point about Richie McCaw, is there a Richie McCaw among the Hurricanes players? I mean, he was a pretty good captain, but I don't think there's anyone in the Hurricanes group who, I don't know, has that resume when it comes to leadership. Nothing against them. I would have thought Brad Shields probably would have had the role. But, you know, I'm trying to find reasons here to back up why the Hurricanes are doing it. It is odd, but it might work. You know, I'm going to bring my Lakers into this for a second. The year that we won the Bubble Championship, Frank Vogel was our head coach, and we had three assistants who were all ex-head coaches. Might have been two or three. One of them was Lionel Hollins. I can't remember the other ones. And everyone said, why the hell do you have head coaches as assistants? This isn't going to work. And the argument was, well, no one's really done this before. You can't say it's not going to work. It's kind of like, I don't know, what people say about the Wu-Tang Clan when it comes to that sort of era of music, that no one's done this before, so you can't say it's bad. So, I don't know. It might work out. Who knows? I'm not going to be too critical until it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose on game day, if there's just one voice that they're hearing, and but it just, it just seems weird, doesn't it? That why broke something that isn't broke?
Well, maybe it was. Maybe the single captain structure last year wasn't working for the Hurricanes. Maybe the players voted on this. Maybe this is something they actually really wanted. Who knows? It might work out. I'm being incredibly liberal here with this. I'm being very accepting of this maybe happening.
As soon as you hear it, though, it just seems like, why? What?
It's happened to the NRL. The Titans had co-captains for a while. I know the Broncos, I think, did it in 2012. They might have switched mid-season. It might work.
Warriors have got co-captains, James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett named. Now, we debated this over the last couple of weeks as to who was going to get named. First time since 2001 that the Warriors have named co-captains. In 2001, it was Stacey Jones and Kevin Campion. And I'm wondering...
They were a half-decent side in 2001, weren't they?
I'm wondering whether or not this was just one of those ones where Coach Webby just thought, I can't, if I pick him, that's kind of going to... if I pick him, he's going to... Or they are both outstanding candidates and just thought, okay, well... Take the pressure off, put them both up.
It happens a bit more in the NRL, as I just said about a minute ago. The Panthers have done this for the last few years, where it's been either Nathan Cleary or Isaiah Yeo, or both.
See, I would have just thought Isaiah Yeo's the captain.
No, Nathan Cleary's held the captaincy in. I think they've changed it over the last 4 or 5 years, but there's been a couple of years
Or maybe it's just the role isn't that important
captains.
as what we used to think it was.
Well, it's just a different approach. I mean, until it wildly fails, I don't think you can really say anything about it,
Doesn't a natural leader just pick themselves these days?
But in league, I like if a forward is the captain and a back is the captain. So your halfback or your general, sometimes the general's your 5'8". Darren Lockyer was for the Broncos for a long time. He played 5'8". That needs to be a captain or one of your two main leaders, because they're touching the ball pretty much more than anyone else, and they are setting up the back line. You also need a forward as well, the guy who's helping the go forward.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just asking the question. I'm an old guy, I just don't get it.
Yeah, but the point of that is that the Warriors haven't done that. They've picked two front rowers, or a guy who can play in the second row, and Mitch Barnett. So it's
two equally outstanding candidates again.
Well, they're outstanding, but it's just it's interesting. What guys who play in the same area of the field, and who's the leading voice in the back line? Because I think if you're going to go with two captains, wouldn't you go with someone in the back line? Like Roger or Chance?
Warren Gatland gone as Welsh coach, 14 losses in a row. The stats when he was first in charge from 08 to 2019, 55% win record. He's only won 6 out of 20 games this time. It was just almost an impossible ask. The keywords in all of the press statements, releases, press conference today were mutual consent. Mutual consent means there's no payout. So he's walking away, and that's pretty gracious of him if that's the case. I would expect him to have got something because he was on a hell of a contract. But the Welsh Rugby Union don't have a lot of money at the
When
moment.
did the contract end? Was it through to the next World Cup?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Because he joined them about a year out from the last
Look, he
World Cup.
loves Welsh rugby and everything else. I think this is it says a lot about the man. If he's walked away from this and he said, I don't want any money or
I
anything.
think he's been pushed out the door, without a doubt. I don't think he's happily walked away from this. This is, there's a recent example.
Well, he's not a quitter of a guy. Look, remember with the Chiefs when they lost every single game?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he's quit. I think they've pushed him out the door.
And they've just written it to say this is mutual consent.
Absolutely, because they have a lot of respect for him, and they know that Welsh rugby fans and Welsh rugby as a whole has a lot of respect for him and a lot of love, and global rugby does as well.
See, this is the problem this day in the world that we live in these days. You know, sports bodies put out a statement, and straight away your first reaction is that true?
Well, this is
or is this just a PR
This
fluff?
is what the Broncos did with Kevin Walters last year. Initially, the rhetoric was that he was fired, but then the official announcement said, no, we've parted ways. We've agreed to part ways. So I don't think there's any way that Welsh rugby have sat there and gone 14 losses in a row. Yeah, like also Warren Gatland's a great coach. But he's not the coach of the future for Wales rugby, is he? But they are building up the team of the future. So wouldn't you also couple that with the coach of the future?
Well,
they don't have a choice.
Who's going to do any better than him?
Well,
no one.
No, but the point is that you may as well write off the next couple of years, knowing you're building up your players. So get a coach that you want to do the same with, a coach who you think could be at the helm for 2 or 3 World Cup cycles. Because it's not Warren Gatland, is it?
Consent. Mutual. See, I don't want to be cynical about this, but this is the world we live in. It is just PR fluffers, guffers, and stuffers, isn't it? And so everything you read, you look at, and you go, I don't believe you.
Who cares? I don't lose sleep over it. I'm sure you don't either, to be honest.
Luis Rubiales in court for the Jenny Hermoso kiss, and the interesting twist overnight was that a lip reader was brought in to give evidence who says that Lewis said before he kissed her, can I kiss you or may I kiss you or I'm going to kiss you or something along those lines. And he's argued the whole time that it was consent, that she said yes. And she's saying, no, it wasn't. This is really messy. Also, there's a lot of testimony overnight about how afterwards she was just kind of laughing about it and didn't really want to make a big deal of it because she didn't want to take away from the celebrations of the team. I don't think anything's changed in my mind. He should never have done it. It was pretty gross. It was out of order. But this might save him. That's why I'm bringing this up. This might save him.
It's not out of order if she was happy to do it. Like, okay, being the devil's advocate, I'm not saying what he did or any sort of, unsolicited kissing is a good thing, so don't get carried away. But being the devil's advocate, in a moment like that where you are so overwhelmed with positive emotion, you're just in absolute jubilation with your teammates, with your colleagues, this group of people who have come together.
Country, you've won a World Cup, you're a world champion. Imagine what that feels like.
I've watched like the Super Bowl the other day or other sporting events or played on teams when I was younger, when I was, thought I was half decent at football and rugby and whatnot. When you're overcome with emotion, you want to kiss everyone and everybody.
You hug everyone.
Oh my God, you happily just take your shirts off and run around naked together. You're just so excited, right? So I can understand why he'd want to do it in the moment. And also, if she said, and look, again, just being the devil's advocate, if what he says is true and she actually said, yeah, go ahead, he's done nothing wrong.
Well, a kiss could have been a cheek kiss, as opposed to the grab a tongue around.
It wasn't. No,
he pashed her, man.
It was a peck. You've seen the footage.
It was a lip-to-lip kiss.
It was a peck, mate. It was a longish peck, granted, but it was a
pash.
No, a pash is when you get it. Okay, no, you're annoying me here on purpose.
If you did that on a Friday night to somebody you just met at the bar,
it was a peck of about 2 seconds, which is, to be fair, a lot. Anyway, the point is if she gave consent to it,
well, it changes it, doesn't it?
Well, he's done nothing wrong. It's just like you're at a pub on a Friday night, you meet a bird, and you get along well, and you kiss her because she says you can.
God, the 70s want their vernacular back. No.
I thought you'd like that with your suits as well.
But
I'm right though. It doesn't look
Somebody's
great.
Right.
It doesn't look great, but if it is consensual, again, devil's advocate, he's done nothing wrong.
Finally, and New Zealand rugby are in a right pickle here over Ineos. Going to war with litigation with a billionaire is, what the outcome of that's going to be. Ratcliffe from Ineos can tie this up in court for 10 years. He's got a hell of a lot of money to spend on lawyers. I mean, the interest that he earns off all his money every day, he could hire 1,000 lawyers. Do New Zealand rugby really want to fight this out over years and years and years? Where's the win in that? At the same time, there's a principle attached. They're down money. This guy has signed an agreement. Normally when sponsors pull out, it's because things have been overpromised and underdelivered. So, whatever has happened here, and he's saying harsh economic times aren't a reason to withdraw the sponsorship. That means that you've just got to take the tackle on that. But I just don't know where New Zealand Rugby go with this.
Hold up. No, that is a reason to withdraw it because you don't want to pay the money anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've signed a contract for however many years and you've guaranteed that money, well, you just can't say, hey, we're in the shtuck now. You're worth 27 billion, mate. How much shtuck are you in kind of thing?
Also, what else has Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos done, mainly him, with Man United?
Yeah, well, they've withdrawn from the America's Cup sponsorship for a start.
And what has he done at Man United? He got rid of a whole lot of what's the right term for them? Incentives or whatnot. The ambassadors for the club. Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't get his fees anymore. Yep. And it was either today or yesterday. He made more staff at the club redundant.
Yeah, so he's cost cutting all over, right?
So it's not just that this is happening to NZR. Now, granted, he's broken the terms of the contract, so what New Zealand Rugby are incredibly, I don't think you and I ever thought would do this, but from a sort of corporate head office level, you can't really argue with New Zealand Rugby taking them to court and getting annoyed about this, right?
Yeah, at the same time, I just don't know whether or not that is ever going to win for them. Maybe that they can negotiate something behind closed doors or something like that. I mean, they now have to reproduce all of the training kit because it's got Ineos on it. They've got to get rid of that, I think, before this weekend. There's a sevens tournament that our men's and women's teams are playing in. I go back to the actual signing of this contract to start with. The New Zealand Rugby just take the most money. They should never have had Ineos as a sponsor.
Why not? Money.
A petrochemical company.
But they've got
Come on.
But there's the same reason why they took Altrad. One story that from a couple of years ago that never really came out. Amazon was nearly the shirt sponsor of the All Blacks.
I would love to see a New Zealand company on that front jersey. We're a New Zealand team.
So this is the thing. They need money.
Yeah. This is what happens. You play with the billionaires. They play their own rules. And now this guy's withdrawn the sponsorship. How do you get your money back off him?
Well, no, hold up. Going back to, you said that they should never have signed the deal with Ineos. Yes, they should have. They needed the money. They have New Zealand Rugby have no money.
That's the problem.
And they're bleeding more and more,
Where is the
right?
Silver Lake money gone?
Well, they'll tell you that it's still being used.
How much money have they spent on NZR Plus, which returns no money?
Which is free.
Returns no money.
Returns no money.
They've got a business model where they subsidise part of the sport, which returns no money.
But
I mean, this is the biggest sport in New Zealand. I'm looking at those finances going,
well, also, I mean, you can, isolating money coming in and decisions around that, ignoring the expenditure, that's an argument for, and we're very anti-NZR on that side of things. You've got to get as much money as you can from anywhere around the old trade thing. The optics were terrible because the bloke who ran that company was on trial for something when they signed the deal. So there's you've got to get as much money as you can. They have none, and so in this situation right now, you got to actually kind of feel for NZR that this contract's been broken. So they got to hit so hard on the fact that the optics look terrible for them and make Ineos feel really bad, and so, do something behind closed doors. Because don't go to court because it's not going to really.
Court's not going to work.
No,
here.
So just try and get some.
I actually do. I just think
background.
it's a real bummer. It just seems to always end up in New Zealand Rugby's lap, doesn't it?
Well, maybe it's just desserts for being a poorly run organisation for a little while now, who rely solely on the All Blacks. The only year over the last 10, 11 maybe that they have actually made a profit was the 2017 Lions. Yeah. The year that we had the Lions here. Now, I don't have
this is our biggest sport in New Zealand, and they're not making money. Is that a worry?
At least from about 213 to 222. I don't know what it was like the last couple of years. We know that what was the storyline 2 years ago now? They said revenue's at an all-time high. Well, if that's the case and you registered a loss, that means that expenditure's at an all-time high, surely. Anyway, so we're getting carried away.
Sort it out with this guy. Don't go to court. Sort it out. Don't go to court.
DSPN.
Miles Davis joins us every Wednesday on the program. It is a warm welcome back to the old mate. We did the very first football show in this country ever, mate. House of Football way back.
Exactly.
Hell of a show it was.
Well,
Bring it back.
26
Bring
years
it back.
ago. 27 years ago now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, no, great days indeed. In fact, we were on Radio Sport when you were doing the breakfast show about 2 months in after when you started. So
that's right.
And it's been downhill ever since.
I wasn't going to mention that, but let's start with football. Sam Kerr not guilty of racially abusing the London Bobby. I'm pretty sure she's been convicted of whatever the other charges were around booting the taxi driver's window out, vomiting in the cab, all of that kind of stuff. But I only just found out last night when I was reading all the court stuff that she also said to the Bobby, "You're an effing privileged white stupid and white. So that, the whole kind of premise about the court case was that he was just called stupid and white. But when you add those words to it, how did she get off? How did she get off these charges?
Honestly, I have no idea. And I don't know whether it's my prejudice, really, A, because she's Australian, but B, the fact that I just don't like her character and her attitude and her superior attitude, the way she threw her race card in so early, but also her general behaviour. I mean, if that had been the other way around, if a copper had said to her, "You're just a stupid, coloured whatever,"
insulted her,
privilege, there would have been a massive charge. And the fact, I said the other week, the old Bill started, they called me white, harden up, mate. But in this day and age, it's got to be the goose and the gander, isn't it? You can't just go one way or the other. And even then, at the end, she's coming out and, still going on about how they felt threatened and well, we're not going to see you again type thing, and giving it the large on the way out, and still doing this, I've been racially...
I'm the victim.
Exactly, I've been racially abused and profiled and all that sort of comment. She went out on the large, got well out of order, chundered everywhere, didn't want to pay for it, smashed the geezer's window and abused the old Bill. Now, if you or I did that, we'd be in the slammer.
Well, I'm sorry, but every media organisation in the country is all over us. The other thing I was going to raise with you is that, my memory goes back to Bowyer and Woodgate, who got off those charges when it looked as though they were absolutely guilty. Stephen Gerrard, elbowing a guy in the face, got off those charges when he looked as though he was guilty.
Roy Keane, beating up 15-year-olds, got off those charges.
Ben Stokes, getting off those charges. And I'm just wondering... I'm just wondering whether there's a kind of a celebrity thing that goes on with juries, and they get overwhelmed by the star power of these people, and they just, for whatever reason, it's a pattern, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe they just get good lawyers. But I mean, I remember that Ben Stokes one. He was drunk and he was well out of order. The guy was backing off, and he really laid into him. And then to come up afterwards and say, there was a homophobic remark, and I was defending my friend. What a load of absolute cobblers.
But he got off. But the jury got him off.
But I think the sad thing about it is you can have acts of violence and real abuse and get away with it. And if you tweet 10 years ago some inane joke like Ollie Robinson did, bam, you get punished by your career getting
crazy world, mate. Absolutely crazy world. England beating France in the Six Nations. I watched that game, messaged you throughout the game.
Allez Blanc.
What a cracking game of rugby that was. Thoroughly deserved. And also, you learnt your lessons, your mob, from the week before. You were able to shut that game out. Yeah, the French dropped some ball, missed some opportunities. Hey, that's a game of sport, isn't it? You got to take your opportunities. You must have been thrilled the way that England came back and hung in there. I mean, this has got to be the momentum shift game for England rugby, doesn't it?
You know those moments when you get that tingling in the nether region when you're watching sport and you're on the express train to Kaiserslautern, as you're well cognizant of. Some geezer I was having a bit of a debate with on Twitter said that was a rubbish game, boring this, something like that. And I thought, mate, there'd be you and about 4 of your mates in the whole rugby world that'd be saying that. There were a lot of mistakes, especially in that first half from the French. But a lot of that comes from pressure and the whole occasion. They knew England-France is always a massive game. Twickenham, a huge crowd with a fair sprinkling of Frenchmen in there as well. And I just thought, as a test match, the entertaining value, plenty tries. The guy said to me that England weren't inventive. I mean, 2 of those tries they scored were outstanding. You know, and I thought personally, I think it was the second French try. I thought there was a couple of forward passes in that, which
looked a bit.
No one seemed to have a look at.
No.
But for them to come back and actually, normally in the last year or two, it's been England getting those points scored against them. Australia hitting the post against your lot. It's gone the other way. So good to see it breaking. It's still a work in progress, but what a fantastic game.
Yeah, fantastic game. I also love, first phase tries being scored. So you kick to the line out, they've got to move off the line out. And that's how I think you scored maybe your last 2 tries. It might have been the third and the last one. But just that, and the guys running in on the angles, it just says a lot about the character of the team and set the Six Nations alight. I mean, that cracking game is obviously coming between Ireland and France. And also, the Welsh are going to be looking at you lot coming to their place for the very last game thinking, oh my God, a double wooden spoon.
If we're going to beat anyone, it'll be us. But before we leave the England game, and I've said this a while ago to you, how good is Marcus Smith to watch? He might make the odd muck up, but God, he's so good to watch. I mean, he played at first five the week before, and he was at fullback. He's just a real live wire, and I'd pay the money just to go in and watch him.
Well, maybe you've got a bit of a Bowden Barrett, Richie Mwanga thing going on now because you got Finn Smith played a bloody good game. What do you do, mate? You've got 2 first fives. You got what? You play one at fullback because you've got to put both of those guys in the team, don't you?
And one of them's not Rob Andrew, thank God. I mean, not that I want to knock Robbie. He did the job, but I want to see a far more expansive game because, as you know,
cracking game.
Wales.
Yeah, brilliant game.
Didn't we say a couple of weeks ago that Gatland's not going to last much longer?
Yeah.
But it is quite strange for an international coach to get the old boot halfway through a campaign.
Doesn't happen, mate.
I think he must have just looked around. And I feel a bit sorry for him because he went back to try and sort of revive the fortunes, but the rot runs so deep. I think it's something like 14 games on the trot now that they've been turned over, and it's so tragic to see that. And I don't know if I've told you this old chestnut before, but I remember about 20, 30 years ago when the All Blacks put 50 on them, and a Kiwi journo said to a Welsh journo, what on earth has happened to Welsh rugby compared to the advance of New Zealand rugby? He said, there's no difference. The only difference, he said, is that Wales isn't surrounded by islands called Fiji, Tonga and Samoa.
Right. Come on, man.
But they've pinched a couple of those boys anyway, so you can't really have that excuse. There's a real rot there at the moment, and I think it's going to take a fair amount of time to come out of it. Maybe the people that were half Welsh now are deciding that they want to play for England rather than play for Wales. But yeah, it's sad to see but I honestly, if you want to have a real upset, if they're going to beat anyone, it'll be England.
Yeah. Super Rugby this weekend. I can't wait. I loved last year's comp. I thought it was excellent. I thought the standard was superb. And it kicks off on Friday. Canes playing the Crusaders. There's injuries already, which is a real bummer. How do you see this unfold? Do you see the Blues still as the team to beat? Can they go back to back?
Well, we just pounded them the other day, didn't we? I mean, I know it's pre-season, but you've got to, but you've got to take them. I don't know. I think maybe they've had their little moment in the sun. Hopefully,
okay.
I can't stand all you lot ringing me up all the time. Do you remember the good old days when you used to have a bit of integrity and you supported the Hurricanes?
Oh, here we go.
But the two things that get me, one was you mentioned there the injuries. I cannot believe how many players from both sides, I think Crusaders are suffering a little bit more, are injured at this stage of the season. You very rarely see that many, maybe the odd one or two, but there seems to be a whole team worth between the two sides that are out. Secondly, what is this 4 captains bollocks?
I know, mate. Honestly, I can't get it either. I mean, we just debated that with Lachlan. I just think, I honestly think it's nonsensical, mate. But I mean, I like Clark Laidor and I like the Canes, but I just don't get it. My mind just doesn't get that.
Yeah, I don't know. What is it? Is it the modern, let's be kind and let's give everyone a medal or a certificate type of thing? He put it forward as, because of all the rotation. Well, Martin, if I'm the captain, if I'm not playing, we'll give it to you. We don't have to go out and make you a co-captain.
No, I don't think so.
You just take over. I mean, it happens all the time. You know who's going to take the armband if someone goes off. It's football, and same with rugby.
Same as rugby.
And any leader worth his salt is going to be asking the senior professionals around him and consulting with them all the time. You see it in cricket, you see it in football, you see it in rugby. They have a little chat. The captain has the final decision. But they're getting input anyway, so I think it's really pathetic, actually, to be honest. And I like Clark Laidor as well. I think he's done a good job down there, but black mark from me for that.
What about that mob down south, mate? How are they going to go this year? I'm not talking the Highlanders. I like the Highlanders.
I know, yeah, we all like the Highlanders, especially when they've been crap in recent seasons.
Absolutely.
I didn't enjoy them when they turned us over in that final at the Cape team.
Well, that wasn't a try,
Elliot. That bleeding Elliot Dixon, he gave me stick about West Ham once when I interviewed him on the radio, the cheeky sod.
I tell you what, he carried 5 of us over the line, so he probably deserves it.
They deserved it. They wanted it more. But anyway, let's get into the present. I like Rob Penny. Don't get me wrong. I like Rob Penny, and he's done a great job around the world in his coaching. He really struggled there, and you do wonder After a dynasty like you look at Man United with Ferguson, see how they've struggled after he left. I think you can see some similarities or parallels there with Robertson leaving and, Penny coming in. So maybe there's a bit of a hangover going on there. You never want, you want to write them off, but you should never write them off. But I'm going to write them off.
Finally, I know that while we were actually doing this, the Champions League is going on at the moment. You've been watching Man City, Real Madrid. It was 1-0 to City. I think Real Madrid equalised. Did they? What's the score?
They did, yeah. Scungy goal off Mbappe's shin. But let's have a butcher's. Oh, wait a minute. Someone's going mad. It looks like Man City might have scored because there's a little kid going,
here we go.
Get on the end of that, you
Get
crap.
in!
And Rodri's clapping like this.
Right,
and Haaland's going like that.
All right.
So I'm assuming... And Mbappe's going, oh, come on, let's cheer it up. So I'm assuming they've taken the lead.
2-1. I'm just looking at you. 2-1. Okay, it's a two-legged thing. I mean, this is the Champions League. That it wasn't the Super League, but is now to win it. Some teams, if they play these games, Miles, play 17 games. That's a half a season now, mate.
That's a lot of coin, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's the reason.
What it's all about. And I've got to say, I quite enjoyed the group stages because there was. Different challenges. It wasn't just the same 3 playing each other or 4 playing each other. It was spread all over the place. And there were some great clashes. Liverpool, Real Madrid was one of them I think of off the top of my head. So
Villa beating Bayern Munich was another one.
I know, brilliant. Back to 82 as well, the good old days.
Right.
That's the first time I went out with my second wife that night. And I was an hour late.
That night that Peter would scored the winner in the cup final.
Exactly. Unfortunately,
and how did that
end? I didn't score at all. But anyway.
She red carded you after how many years?
Oh, yeah, no, let's not go down that path. She shouldn't have even signed up in the first place.
Hang on. Postscript. Hold the phone. We were talking to Miles there. Walked out of the studio. Man City up 2-1. 5 minutes to go. Real Madrid scored twice. 3-2 Real Madrid. That's our podcast and show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow, tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.